years of environmental failure, this Prime Minister is definitely not worth the cost.
The honourable member from Whitby.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For all Canadians, Remembrance Day is a day to pause and reflect. And as the Member of Parliament for Whitby, I want to take this opportunity to pay my respects to the veterans of Whitby. This Saturday, my wife and I look forward to attending the ceremonies hosted by the Royal Canadian Legion's Branch 112 and Branch 152 and the Court at Brooklyn Retirement Home. From Vimy Ridge to Juno Beach to various UN peacekeeping missions all over this country, we remember the courage and sacrifice of the many men and women who fought to preserve what we too often take for granted: our values, our institutions, our freedom, and our democracy. We wear this poppy as a small way to say thank you to the members of our armed forces, past and present. We will forever be indebted to you for your courage, your duty, your honor, and your selflessness. Lest we forget.
Hear, hear.
Oral questions, questions orales. L'honorable chef de l'opposition.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
La communauté juive est si...
The Jewish community is being targeted in Montreal.
Alone. This is what's happened. A Montreal synagogue has been firebombed. A hate preacher has called for the extermination of Jews. Jewish students have been called the K-word. Terrorists fired bullets at 2 different schools. And the UK Foreign Office has warned of likely terrorist attacks in Canada. We've all seen the Prime Minister's theatrical words, but what concrete steps has he taken this week to protect Jews and all Canadians?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the Honourable Leader of the Opposition for that really important question. We condemn unequivocally the attempted firebombing, the shooting at 2 Jewish schools overnight last night in Montreal. There is no room and there is no place for anti-Semitism in Canada. There is no room, there is no place for hate. There is no room and there is no place for violence. Mr. Speaker, we condemn this unequivocally. We stand with Jewish Canadians across the country. The SPVM in Montreal is investigating, and we will continue to monitor this situation, call for calm, and ensure that Canadians are safe. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Les belles paroles ne vont pas protéger.
Fine words don't protect people. Real action is needed. Now, the scandal surrounding the Prime Minister's office continues to grow. We now know that this is similar in scope to the sponsorship scandal, but the president of the fund spent $200,000 of taxpayer money on their own business. Why did the Prime Minister not fire this person?
L'Honorable Ministre.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank the Leader of the Opposition for the question, but Mr. Speaker, let me bring a bit of facts into the fairy tale of the Leader of the Opposition. Mr. Speaker, from the moment that I learned that there was any allegations of wrongdoing, I demanded that there was a third-party investigation, Mr. Speaker. Upon receiving the report, Mr. Speaker, we demanded that there be corrective action at the management level and at the board level. Mr. Speaker, we expect the highest level of governance from any entity that receive money from the Government of Canada.
L'Honorable Chef de l'Opposition.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
And the Prime Minister have known for 6 months of the scandal brewing at their Green Slush Fund, $1 billion fund that one of its own public servants compared to the sponsorship scandal and said there was money for nothing. Yesterday, Canadians learned that the chair of this fund directed $200,000 tax dollars to her own company.
What?
That minister has known that for 6 months. Why has this Liberal chair not been fired from this job?
The Honourable Minister.
Monsieur le Président, je remercie le chef de l'opposition pour...
I thank the Leader of the Opposition for his question. Let me bring some facts forward to the Leader of the Opposition story. The second we heard that there were allegations about managing that fund, I asked for an external investigation in order to shed light on the situation. On the basis of the results we obtained, I asked for corrective measures to be made. We expect the highest level of governance for agencies that manage taxpayer money, and we will continue to investigate.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
After 8 years, not only is the Prime Minister not worth the cost, he still does not have a climate plan. He said that if Canadians paid his carbon tax, it would save the world, but here are the facts. Canada now ranks 58th out of 63 in climate action. Canada is the only G7 country not to have reduced its emissions below 1990 levels. The Prime Minister has missed 7 of 8 of his targets over the last decade. And finally, according to a bombshell report by his own Environment Commissioner this week, he will not hit his 2030 Paris Accord targets. Mr. Speaker, why won't the Prime Minister just admit he doesn't have a climate plan, he has a tax plan?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, what the Leader of the Opposition is saying in this House is factually incorrect. Facts. We have the best performance in terms of greenhouse gas reduction since 2019, Mr. Speaker. Fact. We have a plan that has been applauded by environmental organization, research organization, municipalities, even oil companies have applauded our climate plan, Mr. Speaker. And this morning in the Environmental Committee, the Commissioner to the Environment and Sustainable Development said that not only pollution pricing is working, but it is responsible for 30% of emission reduced in Canada since 2019. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
It's funny that he keeps focusing on 2019 and the year that followed, because that year was the only year in which emissions went down because the economy was locked down, Mr. Speaker. In every other of the 8 years this Prime Minister has been in power, he has missed his emissions targets. He now ranks 58th out of 63 nations. He leads the only country in the G7 that has not reduced its emissions below 1990 levels. And his own Environment Commissioner says he will not hit his Paris targets. So, will they finally admit that after 8 years, this carbon tax is all pain and no gain?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Unfortunately, what the Leader of the Opposition is saying is still factually incorrect, because we haven't missed any of our targets. The only target we have is for 2030. Canada has missed many targets because for 10 years, the Conservative Party did nothing to fight climate change. They did nothing to support clean energy. They did nothing to support electrification of transportation. They did nothing on adaptation, Mr. Speaker. That's why Canada has been missing our targets. This government, this Prime Minister, we will meet our targets. We're 85% to our 20 targets already, Mr. Speaker.
L'honorable député de La Prairie.
Mr. Speaker, Premier François Legault and Premier Doug Ford publicly requested a call for tenders to replace the Aurora aircraft. That's all they're asking for, a call for tenders. The Liberals have to stop hurting Quebec's economy and our aerospace industry. They have no business offering a $9 billion untendered contract to Boeing at the expense of Bombardier. They have no business giving Quebecers taxpayer money to Americans without even letting our own workers compete. That's what Liberal policies against